folks, once a month, either Dusty or I, we alternate in picking a movie that we think Marvin should see that he hasn't seen. And this month was my pick, Children of Men.
2006. Takes place in 2027.
Let's pour one out for the homie fucking Jasper. Went out like a fucking straight G. Pulled my finger.
Yes, he did. I thought he was going to pull a fucking terrorist fucking type of deal. Like, they pull his finger and he just blows the whole fucking crew up. I was like, damn.
Not often, folks, when we watch a movie, does Marvin react in the Discord. But with this one, we got a damn.
We did.
That movie was amazing.
I can't really remember when I last had any hope. And I certainly can't remember when anyone else did either. Because really, since women stopped being able to have babies, what's left to hope for?
Children of Men is directed by Alfonso Cuarón, one of my favorite filmmakers. This is an adaptation of a P.D. James novel from 1992 called The Children of Men. Alfonso Cuarón took the plot of the book and sort of woven it into his own story. This film tells the story of a futuristic dystopia. We love those types of movies.
We do, and this one, yeah, we did it. I can't believe this was 2006.
Well, it's 20 years from when it was made.
It's set in 2027, not far off from where we're currently at. Okay,
Hey,
it's only a couple years away.
better have them babies now, because, you know what I'm saying?
The plot takes place during 2 decades of human infertility, which left society on the brink of collapse. Asylum seekers are basically seeking sanctuary in the United Kingdom. The UK is like the last bastion
Of all places.
of humanity.
England is fucking
And
killing it, apparently.
yeah, and because of the influx of asylum seekers, or as the film calls them, Fugees, the asylum seekers are subjected to detention and all sorts of atrocities by the government, which has now become a police state. The film stars Clive Owen, the greatest
they
James
always
Bond
do.
who never was. When humanity ends, that'll be like the biggest tragedy of our civilization, is that Clive Owen never played James
Never
Bond.
got to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think he doesn't want to. I think he's turned down the role.
Yeah, he
is
doesn't.
what the story
Yes.
is.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Clive Owen plays a civil servant named Theo Farron, and he is contacted by his estranged ex-wife, Julian, played by Julianne Moore, to help her escort a refugee named
Key, I think.
Key. Key's got a little secret that we find out.
Oh, yeah.
After 18 years, 3 months, 27 days.
Yeah, and she is pregnant. What was initially like him doing something just for money turned into him doing something for a greater reason. Alfonso Cuarón like specifically didn't want to explain anything really about this movie, about why women became infertile. He doesn't explain.
I don't mind that.
No, it actually makes the film great. I've said this many
Yeah.
times when talking about like horror
need to
movies specifically.
over-explain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you explain too much, it takes away the mystery.
Not only the mystery,
Exactly.
it makes it a different type of film. In this case,
Right.
it makes it like a straight sci-fi film, which it's really not.
Yeah.
The world was stunned today by the death of Diego Ricardo, the youngest person on the planet. The youngest person on Earth was 18 years, 4 months, 20 days, 16 hours, and 8 minutes old.
But I really like how the movie kicks off with basically setting up the world and how turbulent the times are, right? Right from the first scene when Theo walks into the coffee shop, you're hearing the news on the TV, and you hear all the anti-asylum seeker propaganda, and then it very quickly jumps into the fact that the youngest person alive was killed at 18 in an altercation.
Immediately pulled into the world.
Yes.
Like almost immediately immersed. That's how I felt. for
Absolutely, yeah. And then, there's the terrorist attack on the cafe that he just walked out of, which basically puts you into his perspective of like, oh, wow, like we're all just
I almost
teetering
blew up today.
on the edge of fucking death. But Theo has a pretty depressing backstory. I mentioned that Julianne Moore's character is his estranged wife. They hadn't seen each other in 20 years up until now when she contacts him, but they had a child of their own who died during a pandemic, a flu pandemic that the film mentions a few times. It's an interesting perspective for a character because in a world where children are no longer able to be had, he had a child and then lost the child. It's different, right? It's
Yeah.
like he personally lost a child that he had, and now the world lost the ability to have children altogether.
This is what I found fascinating, is that like the UK was still a polite place where they were like, you could drive down the street in a Bentley or a Benz and not immediately get attacked and assaulted by rioters and protesters.
There were specific sections of London where we spend most of the time in the film that were cordoned off. You could see at the end of the film, they were in like a fucking prison, basically, which was where,
that shit was insane.
which was where all the refugees were. When he went to meet his cousin, who was a government official, it was like a very different society. So it's sort of like structured in a way where like the top people in society are much more comfortable, and even
they're shielded.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
the opening scenes, he was still driving through like protests and whatnot. And I feel like in the real world where those protests are, it would not be necessarily like if it was that dystopian, people would be more volatile.
They just have already separated out the actual like crazies from that bubble of like the mainland, so to speak. Because when they drive out and when they get attacked outside, like when they're driving to the farm, they get fucking, they get attacked. And
I just think that's a futile look at it. I think maybe realistically, that's not as feasible as it would play out. I think it's a lot more volatile all the way through. Even in we pushed out the crazies. You're still going to have crazies where you're at. You can't. It's unavoidable.
But that's what the opening of the film establishes. That's why, like, he's going about a seemingly normal morning, getting a cup of coffee,
and then the bomb
in a normal part of London where like everything's fine.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, there's a terrorist attack, and then you see on his ride home from work how like slowly but surely outside, like you start to see little glimpses of like, oh, the train has fucking cages on the windows, and and the train is going
and
past.
You see him go through like the slums.
He's going through the slums where there are refugees being like fucking hoarded into cages and shit, and not quite unlike.
And they're throwing shit at the train too.
Yep, they're throwing shit at the train because he's considered part of the society that's
concentration camps.
Yeah, right, exactly.
The ultimate mystery: why are women infertile? Some say it's genetic experiments, pollution. Why do you think we can't make babies anymore?
Doesn't matter. It's all over in 50 years. It's too late.
Move along! Move along!
I don't know about you guys, but I can see a path between where we're at in real life in society and this film. Maybe not in 4 years, because this film, again, takes place in 2027. But it was interesting watching this movie in 2023. I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah, no, it was.
But
I think that's
it has been a while.
I think what you said about it not being needed to be explained, what happened to the world, is because we all kind of know, like, we're in a fucked up world in some ways, and we could easily see how it could lead to, like you're saying, if some things were to happen, more and more things, it could easily lead to this type of situation.
Yeah, well, where I see society right now that we're living in real life, it's just a tinderbox waiting to go up, and it's teetering on a very, very thin edge where it could go one way or the other. So I could see a path between something like where we're living and this, because we're in a time where like the price of everything is going up. People are desperate. People are losing their homes. We just got out of a fucking 3-year pandemic that killed millions of people. Like, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, and you could see how like one thing could set it off to where you do have like a fucking, where society just becomes on the brink of collapse. If something worse were to happen, like COVID, we've talked about this before, as bad as it was, like globally, it was like fucking baby games comparatively to what could happen.
And that's why I think the movie played it down a little bit. Like going back to it, like the way they played up the peacefulness in order in London, and because what you're talking about is like, well, this is only like 3 or 4 years away from where we are now, but they're in a world where there hasn't been a birth in 2 decades.
No, I'm saying like, maybe not in the amount of time.
If you want to talk about how society is today versus how society is in 20 years when nobody's had a single child, I think the movie took luxuries and is how peaceful society would be. Like, I think it. Well, no, I think it'd be a lot worse.
I think
what the movie portrayed it.
Well, no, I think you're not accounting for like a huge point of the film, which it's very briefly shown on the TV, like
chaos everywhere else, anarchy.
The UK is the only place it's like one of the few remaining nations with a functioning government. Yes, like the rest of the world is fucking crumbling.
20 years have passed almost, so it's not like they're just instantly separating all the crazy fanatic people at once. It's like they're weeding them out like over this time. They're cracking down. It's like they build up like a system and it's like a
right.
It's not something that just happens overnight, right? So,
well, in this film, it's really the government is doing what they're doing because of because society crumbled everywhere else. The influx of refugees has people like we see that in real life. Like you have,
yeah,
the unknown element drives people fucking crazy. So the government's response to it is to become some fascistic police state.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what's happening. So the government is functioning here, just not for everybody. And that's the plot of the film is that like you have your normal everyday society, and then the refugees and the government specifically trying to deal with the refugees. Like a lot of the stuff in the film that you see, the tensions and the violence and stuff in this movie has nothing to do with like the citizens of England. It's about the refugees. And then the Fishes, the terrorist group that Julianne Moore is part of, like they're the ones fighting for basically equal rights for refugees.
When the people are brainwashed into, you see signs around and there's propaganda. If you see a refugee, let someone know or turn them in. So people are like conditioned to, so like there won't be these big like sects. There won't be these big sects of like refugees because everybody's telling on them because they don't want to get in trouble themselves too. Yeah. Right. So it's just none.
Well, I think that's what I'm trying to say is like, I believe personally in a world such as that, there would be no law and order. You would not find a country where they dictated some sort of martial law and said, yes, you're going to go to work and you're going to do some accounting. No child has been born in 20 fucking years and we're all probably going to die, but you're going to come and you're going to do some banking and accounting and it's going to be fun. I don't believe that the law and order that they were able to maintain in London it would exist in that world. I don't seeing what we've seen in our real world today after 2 or 3 year pandemic. I don't think after 20 years of something that you would see that sort of calmness.
So why did you come to me?
I trust you.
Show him.
Now you know what's at stake.
Like the real message of the film is actually about hope and faith. It explores these themes and it's having those.
And it's about despair too.
Yeah. The novel actually describes what happens when society is unable to reproduce. It uses male infertility as the explanation to the problem. And I
was thinking about that when I was watching it. Like, is it a combination? Is it,
is the males or the females or both? Yeah.
Because normally the females are like blamed. Well, like when I think of Handmaid's Tale, for example, like
so in the novel, it's actually it's made clear that hope depends on future generations. The author of the novel writes, "It was reasonable to struggle, to suffer, perhaps even to die for a more just, a more compassionate society, but not in a world with no future, where all too soon the very words justice, compassion, society, struggle, evil would be unheard echoes on an empty air." The movie does, again, it does no explanation of this stuff. It plays a little bit with like a religious theme because you see some people are like saying like it's God's punishment and this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah. And the nurse is like a fanatic, like doing these weird dances and stuff.
But Alfonso Cuarón has a explanation. Here's a quote from him. He says, "There's a kind of cinema I detest, which is a cinema that is about exposition and explanations," which I've echoed plenty of times. It's become now what I call a medium for lazy readers. Cinema is a hostage of narrative, and I'm very good at narrative as a hostage of cinema. And so he has this disdain for backstory and exposition, and that's why he eventually wanted to use this concept of infertility, and it's a metaphor for, just the fading of hope, right? I mean, if we lived in this type of world, you have no hope. Humanity's dead if you can't reproduce. Like, it's over.
Yeah.
So in the story, you have that like it's almost like mythical, the Human Project. They talk about it a lot during the film. Michael Caine's character is talking about it to Theo before he's even thrust into all this, and Theo, it's almost like conspiracy theory, because Jasper.
I was gonna say that, yeah, it's mythical, but it's also like conspiracy theory.
Well, Jasper's like a pothead UFO fucking nut.
Yeah,
and he's
trying to tell a joke.
Yeah, and he's saying like, hey, this human project, they're like trying to figure out like why women can't have children and like how to fix it and restore hope. And that in the film is turned into a metaphor for basically like the evolution of the human spirit. And
it was a good joke too. You remember the joke?
What was it?
He was like, they can't figure out why we can't have all these babies. And they're asking the guy that's quiet in the corner who's eating, and the guy has a big wing in his hand. It is he was like, I don't know, but this is some good stork.
Yes, that stork tastes good.
That is a good joke.
We have to meet the boat.
What is this boat?
The Human Project have sent a boat.
The Human Project?
Yes, the greatest minds in the world working for a new society.
One of the most salient points in the movie is when the baby starts crying at the end.
Yep.
And everybody stops.
That was a good scene.
Right? Everybody stops and you're like, holy shit.
The war
and that's
stops.
where like that goes back to, his like, just go public. That would have changed everything. And that's all they really had to do. But in that scene where like after like everybody in the hotel or whatever, the building, the hospital they were in, after they get out and then all the soldiers looking them down the street, like somebody up in the hotel is like, all right, I'm done now. Ready to shoot some fucking rockets and kill some people again.
Back
like,
to
let's
reality,
blow some shit up. And we're immediately back to war. And I think like that transformation, like that scene of like, oh my God, like humanity just did something amazing. And everybody stopped. Everybody shut up. Everybody looked. It was all the focus. And then as soon as that focus just like dwindled in one person's mind, you were immediately thrown back into the war that they were in and the devastation and everything else. And it didn't even matter that baby was there anymore.
During that scene, like, you have to still understand, it's like, this is these people who are in the building, like they are being oppressed. Like they are being oppressed.
They're being shot at with tanks and automatic weapons.
They're being oppressed by a tyrannical government. They're being kept in this city, which has been turned into this huge internment camp, essentially, is what it is. And the military is responding to actually the fishes blowing a hole in the wall to get in. But, it's this military exchange where people are fighting for their civil rights versus this oppressive tyrannical force. And it's very akin to like what we saw in Andor and those things.
Yeah. I saw it as like a glimpse of hope for a little bit.
100%.
Well, it's actually funny you mentioned that because the end of the film is also something that Cuarón talks about often in how he ended the movie. He says, we wanted the end to be a glimpse of a possibility of hope for the audience to invest their own sense of hope into that ending. So if you're a hopeful person, you'll see a lot of hope. And if you're a bleak person, you'll see a complete hopelessness at the end. And it is sort of an ambiguous ending. Yes, we see the boat that may or may not confirm that it's the Human Project. We just see the boat, the Tomorrow, that is the boat that they talked about. We don't really know if it's the Human Project or if that exists. So so it could go either way. It's also pretty ambiguous whether or not Theo dies at the end. He just kind of like passes out. You don't know if he just like passed out from the wound or if he died or whatever.
We'll hand Luke.
So that scene I wanted to talk about, right? Now, Alfonso Cuarón plays with these shots often. He's a big fan of experimenting with one shot and one shots in films. I think we talked about it when we talked with Halloween. It's like the film industry's white whale. It's like a very hard thing to pull off, and when it's done right, it's fucking breathtaking and mind-blowing. And most of this the movie's shot on handheld, so that's why you always feel like you're in the movie. You're not just watching the movie. There are 16 shots in this film that are over 45 seconds long, most of which are gunfights and like car sequences and stuff, but one of those was that ambush scene earlier in the film when they are driving down the road and the flaming car comes. What they did was they designed a car, like this weird fucking car that's actually driving on like this fucking dolly thing, and the roof was open and there's a camera. What they did was they allowed for this camera to be in the car and to move freely around the actors and stuff, and actually the actors had to move out of the way of the camera when they were out of frame. But that whole sequence is so elaborately choreographed. It's just unbelievable engineering and like creativity that did that scene. And that doesn't even account for all the other stuff that they have to do too, which is the fucking ambush and the crowd and throwing shit at the car and the motorcycle crash and a fucking gunshot wound. And it's such a fucking unbelievable scene. And the scene ends with them actually getting out of the car. And in one shot scenes, a lot of times they hide cuts. And this is most notable in Halloween. That intro to Halloween is a one shot when he's walking through and you're seeing it through his eyes. But the cut is actually when he picks the clown mask up and puts it on his face. There's like a moment where like the screen blacks out and then you see the eye holes, right? So that's where they hid the cut. In this, they get out of the car, in which we now know is like this fucking mishmash fucking fake car vehicle camera thing. But when they get out of the car, it's a fully fucking car. Like it looks like a car. And it's such a seamless cut that you just don't know where it is. And I don't know where it is. It's unbelievable to me that they did that.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
But the most notable scene is the one we were just talking about, which is the 6.5 minute, phenomenally intricate handheld shot when Theo is on that road before they go into that apartment building. That whole sequence is a single shot. When
getting into the building and then getting out
it's 6 minutes and 17 seconds. I don't know exactly when it starts. I think it starts when Charlie Hunnam, the guy with it's actually Charlie Hunnam. I never knew that until now, but
it is
the guy with the dreadlocks, the white guy.
When they run inside and then he tries to follow them in.
It's before that when the tanks start coming down the street, I believe.
Oh, wow. And so when he hides behind and the people are like, yo, get out of
Theo's running from like cover to cover and they take the baby into the apartment building and then up into the apartment building and he has the confrontation with Chiwetel Ejiofor's Luke. And when Luke's in the corner and he's like, oh, it's a girl, I have a sister, blah, blah, blah. And then back out and then the fighting stops. That is all one single shot.
Wow. When his realization, when he's told him it was a girl, he was like, oh my God, like this changes everything almost. Like,
well, because it's women that have the inability to get pregnant in the film. So you would imagine that the daughter of a woman who got pregnant would also be able to be pregnant. That sparks humanity back into play. But so a 6 minute and 17 second shot took 2 weeks, 2 nonstop weeks of rehearsal. And if there was any mistake, it took over 5 hours to reshoot. Oh my God. And they had to reshoot it 3 times. The director of photography on this movie, Emmanuel Lubezki, aka Chivo, who's a legend in the film industry, most recently worked on Amsterdam that we covered here on the channel. This poor guy had to carry around like a fucking 20-pound camera or some shit for the duration of the shot that they had to do fucking multiple times. So pretty insane. But a wonder like that, again, takes you out of experiencing watching the movie and really puts you into it. And the whole movie does that. Like you very much always feel like you're a part of what's happening. That explosion in the beginning, it's like you feel like you're on the street. When you're following him in the fighting, you feel like you're there with him.
I think that goes to like the sound.
Oh, yeah.
I guess it's like the mixing or something. It sounded really good.
Yeah, the sound design in this movie is great. Even the moments that, again, remember, this is in 2006 too. CGI is not where it was. It was not where it is now. And there's some CGI stuff. Probably the Molotov cocktail on the car earlier in the movie was CGI. The baby was CGI. The baby coming out of the
baby was super CGI, but it wasn't that bad.
But it's passable is the thing.
It was passable.
Yeah, just amazing fucking filmmaking involved in this movie in every regard.
I really enjoyed this movie, bro. This is one of the rare movies that I have to watch again.
Yeah, how could you not?
Like soon, I need to watch it again. It's like one of those things where it's like little things. Yeah.
It's like the perfect cinematic experience, like we said. It's like you have all these like brilliant filmmakers working on, not just director, but director of photography. DPs usually a lot of times are like underappreciated or not even recognized at all, but they're the ones that like are deciding on framing the shots and this, that, and the other. Like,
it's definitely one of those make you think movies. I think there are some like, does it hold the test of time? Does it still make you think 20 years later? Does it hold up?
Yeah.
Mostly. So. There's still, you could poke a couple holes in it.
I think it's more relevant now than it was when it came out.
Definitely makes you think. Yes, absolutely. I do.
We've never really been tested as a civilization up until now. And like We've never really been faced with our extinction. Regardless of what you believe, science tells us we are facing that for the first time. Obviously not within the next 4 years or so, but there is certainly a timeline on where humanity might not be around anymore. And the only way to save that is to come together as a civilization to fight these problems, whether that be climate change or fucking some sort of fucking virus that fucking is a product of climate change. You know, we've talked about like permafrost viruses and stuff. Shit's gonna get real wild at some point. And this is a movie that really showcases that in a different way. Like imagine how fucked up that would be if all of a sudden women are just like, oh yeah, we can't have babies. Oh shit. Like would society collapse the way it has in the film? Probably. Or would we come together as a civilization and try to fix the problem? I haven't seen any signs that would be the case yet, but you know,
it'd be worse.
Keep hope alive. Depends on what kind of person you are.
Your baby is the miracle the whole world has been waiting for.
We will find a way to get you to the human project, I promise you.
We're almost there, kid. We're almost there.
So yeah, great movie, poignant story. Everything about this movie is perfection in my eyes. The way it was shot, the soundtrack, the acting, all that stuff. It has a 7.9 on IMDb, very high.
That's
I don't know.
Too low.
I don't even know why it's not higher. So I'm bumping this bitch up to a 9, baby.
Ooh, shit. I was going to say 8.5. I think I'm going to do 8.5. I really enjoyed this.
I think that's generous. I think
what?
Given the society we live in, I don't think that 20 years later it's an accurate reflection on what society would do. 7.5.
You're giving it a lower rating because it didn't predict the future.
He's fixated on the one thing.
That's right.
It didn't predict the future, so you didn't like it as much as we did. Okay. That's fair. Fair enough.
Not an accurate depiction of what society would do if that were to happen.